Okay, Olive. What's the sign for mommy? What's the sign for daddy? What's the sign for baby? What's the sign for rainbow? What's the sign for more? What's the sign for eat? What's the sign for sleep? Can you do that one again? What's the sign for sleep? Good. What's the sign for dirty? What's the sign for clean? What's the sign for friend? What's the sign for butterfly? Oh, do you know any colors? What are the colors? What's red? Red. What about orange? What about yellow? What about green? What's the letter A in sign language? Close. Okay. What's the sign for peach? What's the sign for apple? What's the sign for candy? What's the sign for cheese? What's the sign for popcorn? What is the sign for go? What's the sign for stop? What's the sign for hurt? What's the sign for help? What's the sign for sorry? What's the sign for bath? What's the sign for grandpa? What's the sign for all done? What's the sign for hungry? What's the sign for drink? What's the sign for carrot? What's the sign for grapes? What's the sign for potatoes? What's the sign for cat? What's the sign for airplane? Good job. What's the sign for dog? Good job. Let me think. Do we know any more signs? What's the sign for train? What's the sign for drive? Like drive a car. What's the sign for drive? What about lettuce? Good. What about play? Good. What about tired? What about cereal? What about milk? What about ice cream? What about corn? What about pear? What about strawberry?